Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News channel. Iryna Zarutska, the Ukrainian woman who came to North Carolina to escape the war in Ukraine. Her murder is sparking renewed calls for the death penalty. And that's not the only place. We'll show you what is going on social media. The military buildup around Venezuela continues tonight. Not getting a lot of mainstream media attention, but it's happening, and we'll show you. The other top stories from today as well. Well, I guess the big one is on the Canadian side. Mark Carney, Prime Minister, out in the Maritimes, announcing more tariff relief, tens of millions of dollars of government money being invested. And we'll show you what he had to say today as well. So stay with us. There's a lot to unpack tonight, and we'll be back on the other side of this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So right off the top tonight, the whole tragic story surrounding Iryna Zarutska continues to evolve. And tonight we're seeing some people even calling for the death penalty in North Carolina for the man who stabbed her to death on public transit. Yesterday, the president was asked about the murder. He said at that point, this would be yesterday afternoon, I believe, he said he hadn't heard about it, but he said, told the reporter who asked that by morning he would know all about it. And so today, Trump speaking at, he was at this, it was a Christian event. And he did touch on this. He got his dating a little bit wrong because this actually happened some many days ago. And he gets the dating wrong on it, but that's okay. He has a lot on his plate, right? Regardless, he is calling this a tragedy. Calls the man who killed her a lunatic, a madman, and says that we need to Well, I'll just let him speak. Here are his comments following yesterday's question from that reporter.
And hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic, just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country. And I created the first who are true.
So as a result of that, we're seeing social media commenting on it. Sorry, I've lost my tabs. Let me take a little break while I get things organized. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, so this murder of Iryna Zarutska, we told you about this a few days ago for the first time, and there's been some coverage. Mainstream media touching on it somewhat, more at the local level in Charlotte, North Carolina. Nationally now, they're actually beginning to pay attention to the story. Here's NBC tonight. 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee killed on North Carolina transit system. Like, yeah, this was many days ago, and now they're getting to the headline. And they're just highlighting here that North Carolina police are investigating the slaying of 23-year-old Ukrainian woman on board a Charlotte area transit system train last month. The reason it's getting the attention is because the video was released, which we did show you in its edited form, because it is so brutal, so hard to look at. So this is Iryna Zarutska, as you can see here. We've shown you her We showed you her picture before. And she came to the U.S. from Ukraine to escape the war. And she just walked onto this train and, minding her own business, sits down looking at her phone, and a man behind her stabs her to death. Here's video. Here's the NBC report. So we'll show you how mainstream media is handling it now. I don't know how many days. Is it a week and a half since this happened? Maybe 2 weeks? I can't remember the exact date. Time flies by. But here we go. And as you can see,
newly released surveillance video shows the moment 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska boarded the CATS train at the East-West station. She sat down in front of a man identified by police as DeCarlos Brown. 4 minutes later, he suddenly pulls out a knife and stabs her multiple times.
I was shocked to hear that. I was like, really? Because I just wrote it like hours before. Like, I'd be on there all the time. I have had words with people, but never violent.
According to video, Brown then walked to the next car, wrapped his hand in a sweater, and left the train. An attack that's left some residents shocked.
Obviously, you get your few people here and there that may cause some type of concern. Like yesterday, I did get followed actually on the train, but I think that's unfortunately, that's normal for women.
And others not so surprised.
Well, I don't feel safe riding public transportation, but I gotta go to work. And I got to get from point A to point B.
Brown did not have a valid ticket to ride the night of the incident. He's now charged with murder. Mayor Lyles issued a statement following the video's release, calling it senseless and tragic, and extending prayers to the victim's family. CATS says is now increasing patrols on the Blue Line and reviewing safety policies. In Charlotte, Anna King, WCNC Charlotte.
So I've seen a lot of posts trying to portray this as a race thing. I do know he was homeless. I know that he had multiple convictions for previous crimes, violent crimes, and they kept putting him back out on the street, which is obviously a major problem. It's a systemic problem, and it's not isolated to Charlotte. It is something that we have a problem with here in Canada too, especially for people with mental health conditions and mental health issues. And we know that the facilities where they used to provide ongoing care and treatment and housing, psychiatric hospitals, essentially, if you want to call them that, were shut down some decades ago. Over time here in Ontario and most of Canada, they're kind of pivoting back to policies that will make use of those kinds of facilities again out in Alberta. And I think that you are seeing a move back toward that kind of, well, the public is demanding it essentially, right? Here's Elon Musk commenting on the Zarutska crime, her murder, senseless. What's he say here? He has, let's change the law between now and then, name and shame the DAs and judges who enable murder, rape, and robbery, but especially shame those who funded the campaigns of the DAs and judges. That will make the biggest difference. And he's reposting this, which is from Xavier DeRusso, whoever that is, and he says, so let me get this straight. A bartender can go to prison for serving drinks to a drunk person if they drive and murder someone. The judges aren't accountable after letting a 14-time repeat offender murder a young woman. And there you go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 mugshots of DeCarlos Brown, the man who obviously did kill her, as seen on video. And then as a result of all that, we are hearing some people call for the death penalty for Brown. One moment. And then, as I say, some people trying to frame this as a race thing, and you can make your own assessment. In previous court cases involving Brown, his mental health issues were highlighted, and whether he was fit to stand trial was questioned.
A Ukrainian woman was murdered by a homeless man, but some media isn't reporting it, and it's a pattern of being silent when the killer is black and the victim is white, and loud when it's the opposite. On August 22nd, Iryna Zarutska sat down on a bus in front of DeCarlos Brown. DeCarlos, for no apparent reason, stabbed her in the throat. This was cold-blooded murder. Iryna was a white, blonde, Ukrainian refugee who fled the war. DeCarlos is a black, homeless, 4-time felon who just left jail. I hate that I even need to mention their skin colors, but I do. Because if this had been a white man murdering a black woman, this would be nonstop national news. And yet, the New York Times hasn't reported on it. CNN hasn't reported on it. MSNBC hasn't reported on it. What do they all have in common? They're all on the left. This is clearly newsworthy. It touches multiple third rails: race, immigration, Ukraine war, homelessness, and crime. So why aren't they reporting on it? Because there's a race-based double standard in the media. Now, make no mistake, right-wing media like Fox News and New York Post are biased too. And here's the thing, the media is overwhelmingly left-leaning. 30 to 60% of journalists are on the left. 5 to 7% are on the right. So we're all getting a skewed version of reality. One in which white on black crime is worthy of marching, but black on white crime isn't worth mentioning. Both are equally wrong. But we've been conditioned to see race first and principle second. And it's swinging the pendulum from one irrational extreme to the other. From white people being elevated to white people being denigrated. Meanwhile, black-white race relations are worse than they were at the start of the century. But why should I, a black man, care? Because we all should. We're supposed to be ending racism, not flipping who gets to be racist. And if we don't correct this, many white people will become resentful, and they'll swing the pendulum back to black. We can't keep doing this. In the face of evil, we must let go of racial preferences and focus on principles. All decent people must say, I don't care what color they are. A person murdering another person in cold blood is evil. All humans must say, I don't care who started it. A boy stabbing another unarmed boy at a track meet is wrong. All mature adults must say, I don't care how mistreated you feel. A woman calling a child a racial slur is disgusting. In a race war to the bottom, no one wins. The division shouldn't be black versus white. It should be wrong versus right. The media profits from us being divided. But you don't have to play that game. That's why I built Clear Thinker, so you can see right through it.
Never heard of it. Let's go there. What was that? It was clearthinkeracademy.com. Okay, let's go look. Clearthinkeracademy.com. Now let's take a look. Very interesting. And I can't say I disagree. In fact, I agree with, I think, everything he said there. Not sure if the stats on the media stuff are entirely accurate, but I get the gist. And here it is. Clear Thinker, the number one technique the media uses to manipulate you, the framing effect. And your email below to learn how to cut through media manipulation and cognitive biases. Okay, let's see what he says here. Oh, you gotta sign up. So I don't know what it is. It's that guy's name, I think, is Kazan Asaidu. Well, we're just giving him a free plug. All right, well, You can go there if you want. I've never heard of the thing before, or the site, or his program, or whatever this is. Is he trying to sell us something? You gotta fill out the form below. Here, hang on. Let me try and sign up for it, and we'll see what happens. I'll type in the info. Okay, and then maybe we can find out what is. Watch the training video. Okay, so is he might, this must be some sort of a business. Everybody's trying to make a buck. Okay, so let's see what he has to say.
Stream and social media used to bias your opinion. And once you understand this, you'll see it everywhere. I'll first explain it with a non-political example, and then show you how it applies to political and cultural news. But first, pop quiz. In which image does this man look happier? Is it option A, this lucky man just won the lottery? Or is it option B, this man just lost his job? Trick question, it's the same exact image, but most people pick option A. Why? Well, it's not because they're gullible, it's because of the framing effect, a cognitive bias where the presentation of information alters your decisions, even if the options are identical. So what's different between these two images? Well, first, there's a color of the text. Green is generally associated with positive. Think like a traffic light, red, yellow, green. Red is generally associated with negative, like a traffic light or a stop sign. There's also the scenario. In option A, it's positive, winning the lottery. In option B, it's negative, losing a job. And finally, there's the adjectives used in those sentences. In option A, we have the adjective lucky, which is positive, and option B has no adjective. The combination of these factors make option A feel happier, but the images themselves are exactly the same. And I didn't play fair. I also biased you by asking which looks happier, implying that a difference exists. And that trick is called asserting a false dichotomy. So you didn't stand a chance. Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman showed the science behind the framing effect in action in his famous study. In that study, people were given two options to treat a disease outbreak. The options were actually exactly the same, but the one that was framed as saving lives rather than preventing the loss of life was more popular despite the treatments being exactly the same. Now here's how the framing effect plays out in real political coverage that you're seeing every day. And these examples are for educational purposes only. They don't reflect a political stance. It's just showing how the framing effect shapes your perception. Let me show you exactly how this works using real examples from the Trump versus Harvard story in early 2025. First, here are the facts. Harvard had anti-Semitism issues on campus. Trump told Harvard to make changes, including ideological audits and monitoring foreign students. Despite the fact that Harvard agreed that anti-Semitism was an issue on campus, they refused Trump's solutions. So, Trump revoked their ability to accept international students. Left-leaning headlines like New York Magazine said, Trump admin tries to expel Harvard's foreign students. MSNBC, which is also left-leaning, said, Trump admin blocks Harvard from enrolling international students, escalating radical fight. And then there's the right-leaning headlines. New York Post said, Trump administration terminates Harvard student visa program over pro-terrorist conduct at protests. Fox News says, Trump suspends foreign student visas at Harvard University amid national security concerns. What's the difference? Well, the left highlights students' plight with emotional words like expel and radical fight. The right justifies the action, emphasizing the protests and pro-terrorist conduct. You see the difference now? Same facts, but completely different focus. The left emphasizes the impact on students, making Trump look cruel, and the right emphasizes the reason for the action, making Trump look justified. Both have elements of truth. All of the headlines were factual, but what was emphasized and how it's described shapes your view of reality, feeding off of your existing beliefs. Here's another example. Elon Musk stepped down from leading the Department of Government Efficiency in 2025. Here are two articles from the same day. Right-leaning. Fox News says, Musk officially steps down from Doge after wrapping work streamlining government. And in the article, they noted his 130-day limit as a special employee for the reason that he stepped down. On the other hand, left-leaning New York Times said, a disillusioned Musk, distanced from Trump, says he's exiting Washington. And they focused on Elon's alleged frustration and his ties to Trump. Fox News frames it positively as streamlining and cites the legal limit. New York Times frames it negatively with words like disillusioned, distanced, and they didn't mention the 130-day limit in the article at all. Now, it's possible that both the right and the left are saying things that are true, but the framing shifts the narrative. So now that you know what the framing effect looks like, here's a 3-part framework to spot media bias and protect your mind. Here's how to protect yourself from framing and manipulation. 1, watch out for mind reading. These are assumptions about how someone thinks or feels. They might be true, but require really strong evidence. Here's an example. Remember that New York Times headline that said, a disillusioned Musk, distanced from Trump, says he's exiting Washington? Disillusioned and distanced are mental and emotional characterizations, not necessarily facts. Unless Musk literally said, I am disillusioned, this is interpretation that's being presented as objective truth. 2, identify subjective qualifying adjectives. Now, that's a mouthful, but it's basically a fancy term for descriptions of things that are not universally agreed upon. Here are examples of adjectives like that should raise red flags for bias for you. Words like radical, extreme, controversial, embattled, far right, far left, sharp rise, baseless claims. When you see these words, you might just be getting narrative, not facts. For example, MSNBC's escalating radical fight. Radical is subjective. What's radical to one person is reasonable to another. Number 3, notice what's emphasized versus omitted. The same story can look completely different based on which facts are being highlighted. Let's revisit the story about Elon leaving Doge. Fox News emphasized Musk's 130-day employment limit 6 times in the article, but they never mentioned his comments in interviews about spending too much time on politics. On the other hand, New York Times emphasized Elon's comments about spending too much time on politics, but never mentioned the 130-day limit in that article. Same event, different conclusions based on which facts you hear. Now, keeping this all in mind can be difficult, so here's an easy way to remember this tool. Remember to check for F-R-A-M-E, frame. F is facts, R is rhetoric, A is adjectives, M is mind reading, and E is emphasis. If you analyze the facts, watch out for rhetoric, notice adjectives, detect mind reading, and see emphasis, this will protect you incredibly well against the framing effect. If you just remember that simple checklist, you'll be way more likely to spot media bias in almost any headline or story in the corporate media or social media. And you could try this right now. Find any major news story and read coverage from 2 different sources. Then ask yourself, what's an objective fact here? Saying the sky is blue and has clouds in it is objective. Saying that same sky is beautiful is subjective. Some people would say it's beautiful, but not everyone. You can also ask yourself, what is this rhetoric designed to make me feel? What subjective adjectives are being used? Is there any mind reading or emotionality in here? What is the article emphasizing? And if you notice all this stuff, you'll be shocked at just how different the same story can be. But why does this matter anyway? Well, because every media outlet has bias. It's human nature. We all have bias, including me and including you. So the goal isn't to find unbiased news, because it doesn't exist. Some publications are more centered, but none are perfect. The goal is to recognize the bias so that you can think for yourself. When you understand framing, you stop being a passive consumer of information and instead become an active, critical, and clear thinker. And this skill doesn't just help with news. It helps you make better decisions about relationships, money, health, pretty much every part of life. Why? Because the more clearly you can see bias in the world, the more easily you can see bias in yourself. yourself. And that's why in this era of misinformation and bias, it's critical to master your thinking. The mainstream media is not going to fix bias, the government's not going to fix bias, and social media definitely ain't going to fix it. So the only solution is to master your own mind. So look, at this point of the video, you've gone through the training, you've learned about the framing effect, and you have a few options here. Option 1 is do nothing and move on like you never got this information. And you could not change your view of the world and treat this like just some cool video that you watched on the internet one time. Option 2 is you can actually go and apply this tool and see the world a little bit more clearly. And you can go and do this by yourself. It took me years to even be able to put into words what this is, let alone see it consistently. And that's why there's also option 3. Rather than mastering clear thinking by yourself, you can get in-depth guidance on exactly how to do it, which would not only be more powerful and more reliable, but also a lot more fun. And spotting the framing effect is just the beginning. There are 10 other critical thinking techniques that it is critical for you to know in order to transform how you see the world and make decisions. And that's why I detailed all 10 of them in Clear Thinker by Kaizen, a complete system for cutting through manipulation, logical fallacies, and cognitive biases in every area of your life. Inside Clear Thinker by Kaizen, you'll get access to the video course curriculum, which will show you the most common logical fallacies and cognitive biases that are preventing you from getting to the truth.
Okay. So he didn't pay us. So we'll cut his ad there. Good information. I think very valid, insightful. He probably has some very valuable stuff inside his course. And that is largely what we try to do around here as well, is get everybody a little closer to the truth every single night. And so go support him, take his course, pay him whatever fees he wants. If you choose to do that, or you can hang out here and we'll continue to explore these issues together, or you can do both, or you can do nothing. As he said, the choice is yours, because we're still living, well, it's still almost a free country.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So, Iryna Zarutska, her murder, as I say, generating a lot of discussion about the death penalty. Also, there is a GoFundMe that has been set up for her family. I will show you how that's going. Right here. $96,298 USD raised so far of a $110,000 goal. 1,700 people donating so far. It says, dear friends, our Valeria and her husband, Frank Scott Haskell, Iryna's uncle, has suffered a terrible tragedy. Their niece, who is 23 years old, was killed. Ira had recently arrived in the United States seeking safety from the war and hoping for a new beginning. Tragically, her life was cut short far too soon. This is an irreparable loss for her family. We have created this fundraiser to support Valeria and her loved ones during this heartbreaking time and to help them with the unexpected expenses. Any support you can give, whether through a donation or simply by sharing this page, will mean so much to the family. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your kindness and compassion. And then it's written in Ukrainian as well. Some photos posted. So the debate rages on. And is it possible that he could receive the death penalty? Well, it is possible, as North Carolina law allows for capital punishment in cases of first-degree murder with aggravating factors. Brown has been charged with first-degree murder for the stabbing death of Zarutska on that Charlotte light rail train, August 22nd. The decision to pursue the death penalty is going to depend, though, on the prosecution's assessment of aggravating factors, such as the brutality of the crime or the defendant's criminal history, weighed against mitigating factors, such as Brown's reported mental health issues, which I alluded to a little earlier. North Carolina has not executed anyone since 2006, indicating a practical moratorium on executions, which could affect the likelihood of a death sentence being carried out. The case is still in the pre-trial phase at this point, and a competency evaluation for Brown is pending, which could further influence sentencing considerations. And ultimately, the outcome depends on the trial, prosecutorial strategy, and judicial discretion. Just going to do a search here to see if there's anything new regarding this specific case. Before we move on to the other aspects of this, right here, I'll show you the calls on social media for the death sentence. A lot of people just fed up, and also a lot of people being, I would say, influenced by what they're seeing online, as we just explored in that video with our new friend. So here's Just Jen prescription. Should he be sentenced to death for killing 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska? North Carolina, in fact, does have the death penalty. As you scroll down, it's not the only case that people are commenting on with regard to the death penalty. The murderer, this is another post, the murderer of Iryna Zarutska had been arrested 14 times before. It's beyond ridiculous that this monster had not been permanently locked up. Death penalty for him. And it goes on. He be sentenced to death for killing 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska, question mark. North Carolina, in fact, does have the death penalty. Another one, the death penalty has been a taboo here, an off-limits option. The reasons included the chance of being wrong and possibility of redemption. This is the case for the assailant should never have another minute of freedom. His guilt is unequivocal, and his crime utterly terrible. And Zaldwin Sealand on X saying the problem with the death penalty is that it has sometimes been used by corrupt individuals to eliminate innocent people. It is not something to take lightly. However, in this case, it may be justified. 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska fled the U.S. to the U.S. due to Ukraine's ongoing war. And then it tells what happened. Brown has 14 arrests since 2011, including robbery with a dangerous weapon, assault, and felony larceny. Man. And it just makes everything worse, doesn't it? All the way around. And then we have this other case also where people, I think, are calling for tougher penalties, maybe even the death penalty. This sexual assault case involving the 3-year-old victim girl, Welland, Ontario, resulting in the arrest of this guy. And there's his picture. Police have released information on that. They see if I can find you the actual police release. I'll bring it back up over here. Anyway, this guy, Daniel Senecal, 25 years old. He's accused of forcing his way into a home in Welland, Ontario, and then violently sexually assaulting a toddler, 3 years old, a girl. He's been arrested and charged. Neighbors and friends say they're outraged, obviously. And I am getting, I'm finding some conflicting information surrounding the case. It's a Facebook post from the cops. Here it is here. I'll show you. The one thing that seems to be a little murky is whether the family knew this guy. Originally, I was hearing that this was a complete stranger, and police seemed to be treating this as a stranger assault. But that may not be the case. This is the chief of police statement. In fact, here I've got a link. I think it's going to take me right to the actual news release. Here it is here. But some people are saying that this man, Senecal, had previous contact with the 3-year-old girl, and that the family, he was known to the family. I don't know what kind of relationship, if any, they actually had with him, if any. It says August 31st, Niagara Regional Police officers assigned to 3 District Welland responded alongside Niagara Emergency Medical Service paramedics to a residential address located near Crowland Avenue and York Street in Welland for a medical assistance call involving a child under the age of 3 years old. Upon arrival, uniformed patrol officers observed the front door to the residence showing signs of having been forced open. Further observations confirmed the involved child was suffering from serious injuries, prompting an immediate criminal investigation. The child was assessed at the residence and transported by paramedics to an out-of-region hospital for advanced medical care. The child remains in hospital at this time and is listed in stable condition. I've heard and I've seen videos of people providing details on the injuries to the child, but these are from people who I can't say if what they're saying is actually accurate or not, exaggerated. I don't know. So I'm trying to stick to whatever information I know is factual. And I'd say that this is factual, but may not be completely transparent. And there may be reasons why additional information is not being released, not the least of which is that it may compromise an investigation, may compromise a case if the information comes out. It may also be, some information may be withheld out of respect for the family and some privacy issues, and healthcare, medical information, privacy, protecting the child. Who knows? Well, I do know there are a lot of these issues that come to bear in these cases. And so, well, some people would like more information. Sometimes it's not appropriate to release all of it to the public. After speaking with the child's parents, this release goes on, it became apparent an unknown person, unknown, but I'm getting information also that they may have had some prior contact with this person, defeated the lock on the front door and entered the residence sometime between Saturday at 10 p.m. and prior to the incident, reported on Sunday at 8:59 a.m. And while inside the residence, unbeknownst to the parents, their child was sexually assaulted. So Saturday, August 30th, 10 p.m., sometime between then and the next day, August 31st, at 9 a.m., so sometime between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m., got in. 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. So I guess maybe they were in bed by 10, didn't hear the, who knows? Maybe they went to bed. Again, information, we don't have the details. Uniformed patrol officers secured the scene, commenced a neighborhood canvass in search of investigative leads. A witness was located who indicated they may have video surveillance of the general area. The video was reviewed and a suspect was identified. Further investigation by uniformed patrol officers in consultation with detectives assigned to the child abuse unit resulted in the arrest of Daniel Senecal, 25 years, of Welland. He remains in police custody at this time and is charged with the following criminal offenses: aggravated sexual assault on a person under 16, 3 years old, assault choking, break, enter, and commit a dwelling house, sexual interference with a person under 16 years of age. Senecal is scheduled to went to his bail hearing. Detectives assigned to the child abuse unit have assumed carriage of the investigation, which is obviously ongoing. They are being supported by detectives assigned to the sexual assault unit and forensic services unit. And so this was issued September 1st, so this is many days ago. I'm just showing it to you to illustrate where police have been with the case. And it has, just the, I would say some people are using it for political purposes. Not to say that everyone, even some politicians who are commenting on it, are necessarily commenting on it simply for political purposes. I think there is genuine anger and rage and frustration out there in the public. And again, some people calling for much tougher penalties, possibly even including the death penalty with regard to this case and others. Some people saying that this guy was a transgender. I don't know if that's actually accurate. I have seen images online where it appears that he may be a cross-dresser or whatever you want to call that. But I don't know. Again, now here's Grant Abraham from the United Party of Canada, who's been on the program before. And when I say, people calling for tougher sentences, he's reposting this from Brian Garrettson, who says there is no punishment strong enough in Canada for what this guy deserves. And then Grant just up here says, yes, there is. And so when he says that, well, I think I know where he's going with it. He doesn't come right out and say it. You can fill in the blank. And I'm sure I know he's not alone. So that's where a lot of people have gone with this thing. And me personally, I've never been, I've always been opposed to the death penalty because I just don't believe human beings should kill other human beings. Life sentences, yes, but truly, like life sentences, like put people away who do things that are terrible and don't let them back out. The problem with the systems in both Canada and the United States is that people are arrested multiple times, as we've seen, and I know that Senecal has been previously arrested as well. He's got a record, and then they just let them back out. And where mental health issues are issues, the issues are not being addressed. The people are just kicked back out onto the street, and then those facilities where they used to be cared for shut down, and then the cops are forced to deal with these social issues and not just out there dealing with like crime. They're dealing with crimes, I think, that are happening because of the social issues like homelessness and poverty and a whole range of other issues too, not the least of which is hatred between different groups and division and anger, and it's just all getting worse. So with that, we're going to move on. These are issues that have been with us my whole life, probably yours, and well before I was ever born. And I think we'll be dealing with these same kinds of issues long after I'm gone too. But I'll be back after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So here's the picture that is going around of Senecal, where some people are saying he's trans or identifies as trans. And again, I don't have all the information. I don't think that a lot of people do have all the information. So I look at the one on the side there. Don't know. I just don't know. I do know that the police chief, after this incident, this crime, this assault, some would say this evil, reared its head. Police chief issued this statement saying, "This is a tragedy that has deeply impacted our community and our investigators. Detectives are working closely with the child's family to ensure that this matter is fully investigated and carried through the judicial system. We are aware of misinformation being shared online and urge the public to rely on verified sources while also respecting the privacy of the child victim. While we continue to work with our policing and government partners on bail reform, public records show that the suspect was subject to a probation order at the time of the offense. The accused remains in custody." That was 4 days ago. And I didn't touch on this story prior to this because it was not really brought to my attention. It wasn't coming up in my feeds. And I really became aware of it a couple of days ago, but because it had so much time had passed, I knew we would come around to touching on it. But this was a story that just didn't end up on our radar over here. But we're telling you about it now, and I know that probably a lot of you are already previously aware. So we're playing a little catch up, but moving the story forward tonight with the newest information. So I hope this is helpful to everybody tonight. We have other stuff going on here tonight too. Ukraine war raging on. We are seeing as well that Ukraine and Taiwan have agreed on a new cooperative effort on the development and production of drones. And it looks like all those efforts to broker some sort of a peace deal or ceasefire or whatever, with Putin going to Alaska and then the European leaders accompanying Zelensky to the White House, all that stuff, it seems, was for nothing, because we're no closer to peace tonight than we were before. Trump yesterday asked if he's ready to move ahead with tougher sanctions, and he indicated in a word saying yes, but still not really seeing any action on that front. So I don't know. I just don't know, because Trump is such a wild card. Even over in the area around Venezuela, where we are seeing the military buildup there continue. I keep seeing this kind of material. This is, we're told, video of a massive US C-17 Globemaster arriving at an airport in Puerto Rico, where many military assets are arriving on the island. And this in itself seems like maybe a bit of propaganda, a little bit of pro-American cheerleading as the Warhawks rattle their sabers. I'm not going to play the audio because I'm sure it's copyrighted, but we've got this very dramatic slow motion footage of this C-17 flying into Puerto Rico. And we're told something big is going to happen. And I have heard some, I'll call them U.S. military online live streaming influencer channels, where I think they're getting their information probably directly from the U.S. military, saying that an invasion of or a landing or whatever, some sort of U.S. military intervention in Venezuela is imminent. And that's coming from pro-American influencers. So I would not be at all surprised. We saw them blow up that fishing boat, speedboat, whatever you want to call it. I would say it's sort of a fishing boat. And as I've been digging into it more and more, even though there were some officials from Venezuela who said it's AI generated, not real, that it's fake. It looks like it came from a small, well, it used to be primarily a fishing village in Venezuela, but over the past decade or so, the information I've been able to kind of dig up on it is that drug dealers, cartels, have been using that as sort of a port, a place to transport drugs from, and often on fishing boats like that one, equipped with multiple motors to get speed out of them. And the destination is not actually the United States, it's actually Trinidad, Tobago. And then I guess from there, the drugs are further transported to the US, but I guess that's actually the ultimate destination. And in that small fishing village, a lot of people who live, really with little or no income, subjected to over a decade's worth of violence and blood. So that's what they're living with as well. And they're also involved, I guess, in some human trafficking ongoing down there. But does that justify U.S. military intervention? You can debate it. I think you're on a slippery slope myself. Very, very concerned about all of that. Maduro saying that this is other Latin American leaders down there saying that the U.S. is using this as a pretext for an invasion of Venezuela, and that what the real goal here is regime change. They want Maduro gone. Trump doesn't like him. And I don't think Marco Rubio much likes him either, frankly. You know who else doesn't like him? Donald Trump Jr., who is carrying the narrative forward. I have a little clip from Don Jr. here, where his verbal assault on Maduro carries with it a message straight into Venezuela.
They're not just, they're not dealing a little bit of pot to some kid in college. He's probably going to do it anyway. No. These are terrorists as designated by both the state and Treasury departments, okay? These are like their own nation states.
So if two departments of the U.S. government declared them to be terrorists, not just drug dealers, but terrorists, then I guess that's the official word. If it's not just one department of the U.S. government, but two, then that's proof.
People more well-funded than most small armies, probably more than some big armies. They're working directly at the direction of Nicolas Maduro's regime in Venezuela. They're trafficking drugs. They're trafficking young women, children, and weapons. And for years, our government just let it happen. Why? Why did they allow it? We were too worried about being politically correct? Was that it? I mean, God forbid, we got to make sure. I mean, it's only 100,000 deaths, right, guys? Too worried about what maybe the UN might say? Maybe we should stop funding them too. Too worried about their cocktail party invitations? You got to get invited to the cool lib party. I'm sure it'll be awesome. Well, guess what? Those days are over. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it best. The cartels have been at war against us for decades. It's time to end that status quo, okay? When they're at war with you, you got to be at war with them. No different than the political game we play. We can't play t-ball while others play hardball. It doesn't work. We've seen that. We've ran that playbook on the conservative side for decades, and it got us nothing. We can't keep doing it. I've been saying it for years. And when you're being attacked, you don't send strongly worded letters. You send the United States military. You send a message that if you mess with America, if you poison our children, if you traffic human beings, you're going to face the full might of the most powerful military in the history of the world. Check out what Secretary Rubio had to say.
Venezuela is a major source, and the reason why is the following. And I've seen a lot of this reporting, and it's fake reporting, and I'll tell you why. It says that somehow Venezuela is not involved in the drug trade because the UN says they're not involved in the UN. I don't care what the UN says. The UN doesn't know what they're talking about. Maduro is indicted by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York. That means the Southern District of New York presented the evidence to a grand jury, and a grand jury indicted him. And then a superseding indictment came out that was unsealed about 1.5 years ago that specifically detailed Maduro's actions. So number one, let there be no doubt, Nicolas Maduro is an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and he's a fugitive of American justice.
Now, we've covered all of this extensively on this show, like almost every week. Frankly, we're talking about this when the media didn't want to pay attention or when they were purposefully ignoring it. We interviewed Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado on these very issues. We've talked about it with Secretary Rubio, with Deputy CIA Director Michael Ellis, with Senator Rick Scott, with Eric Prince, and so many others. It's honestly a great example of why legacy media is dying. They weren't even paying attention to their own hemisphere. They weren't even paying attention to something that kills such a huge amount of Americans. I don't know why. I think we all probably do. Maybe deep down, they just hate our country. They don't care. They're not going to be affected. They'll figure out how to get away from it. You know, they get to hide behind their walls and they have their security. It's just different for them. They don't have to live in the streets of some of these cities that are overrun with crime and death and mayhem and destruction. They were too busy asking for the millionth time, what about security guarantees in Ukraine? Or asking why my father didn't hold a press conference for a day last week. And then suggesting that he was probably dead. I mean, you know, the same people who had no problem with Joe Biden going missing for weeks on end, sometimes months, who didn't ask a single question when he couldn't get out a complete sentence. You know, those guys. But I wish I could say this was just a problem with the media and the left. But we still have a couple of weak Republicans who think they're not being compassionate enough to our enemies. Because Rand Paul was literally this week attacking Vice President J.D. Vance for being too tough on drug cartels.
No, I don't think that was what I don't think that's what the issue was there, Donnie. I think it's about how it's being done. Yeah. Just blowing boats out of the water with missiles or whatever it was that you dropped on that small craft from a drone or a fighter jet or whatever it was. I don't know. So that's what Rand Paul is concerned about, because he doesn't want to get sucked into the abyss of evil like some people who stare too long into it and get sucked down inside. Well, they say they're out there fighting evil. They become the very thing that they say they're fighting against. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing. And I do see it happening in our society. Makes me very worried about it. And I have to, there's one thing, a question I have to ask is, did Maduro take the babies out of the incubators? I just wondering. I have no doubt that there are a lot of drugs that flow from Venezuela to the United States. I have no doubt that they flow from that port, because all the information that I've been able to dig up over the past few days suggests that that is the case. And in addition to that, while even some members of the Venezuelan administration have been saying that that video of the boat being blown up was maybe even AI, no, the word is from that village where it appears that boat came from, that the 11 people on board were very, very real. So if you have real victims missed by families and human beings in that village, then I would say it's a very real video. The question is, why did they have 11 people on that boat? Were all 11 of them drug dealers? And if indeed human trafficking is an issue, I have to wonder, were any of those people on that boat, were they being trafficked? Were they victims of human traffickers being transported from one place to another? Or were all 11 human beings on that boat guilty of drug trafficking? because there's been very, very little information released about this extrajudicial killing at sea. And if the United States blew a boat out of the water and there was even one innocent soul aboard, then I would say that Donald Trump has blood on his hands. And so does Marco Rubio, and so does Don Jr. And regardless, no due process there. Some people calling it a war crime. Crime against humanity, in a way. Drug trafficking is not a capital offense. But it is now. How you do things matters. Because if they can do it to them, they can do it to all of us. And is it really about drugs? Is it really about Canada and the giant, this huge narco state that we have up here in Kazakhstan? Is Mark Carney a giant drug lord just like Maduro? How long is it going to be before we're targeted next? Because Canada is so difficult to get along with, so difficult to deal with. Should I be concerned? I don't know. Yeah, I'm concerned. Is it justified? Well, I am a little bit, but I think it is somewhat justified when I see General Laura Richardson talking about the lithium triangle, and which includes Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Venezuela. Talking about gold and oil and Guyana's crude. 31% of the planet's fresh water is national security interests. Let's bring up the general. Does this mesh with the administration's goal of what? Just combating drugs? Here she is talking about why that area of the world, why that area around Venezuela, why Venezuela is a national security concern.
If I talk to my number two adversary in the region, Russia, I've got, of course, the countries, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua with Russia relationships. But why this region matters, with all of its rich resources and rare earth elements. You've got the lithium triangle, which is needed for technology today. 60% of the world's lithium is in the lithium triangle: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile. You just have the largest oil reserves, light sweet crude, discovered off of Guyana over a year ago. You have Venezuela's resources as well, with oil, copper, gold. We have the Amazon, lungs of the world. We have the 31% of the world's fresh water in this region too. It's just off the charts. We have a lot to do. This region matters. It has a lot to do with national security, and we need to step up our game.
Carving the world up into spheres of dominance. From Greenland to Panama to Venezuela, and maybe beyond. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow Maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, Rick, you're overreacting. You're worrying too much. Everything's fine. The United States isn't going to invade Venezuela or Canada. Don't worry about it. Yeah, just this, and Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, for crying out loud. Even though he's just boarded the USS Iwo Jima, addressing the troops, saying that what they're doing down there right now is not training, that it's a real world exercise on behalf of the vital national interests of the United States. Well, don't worry about it. It's all fine.
How we doing, Warriors? I think this might be the single most beautiful picture I have ever seen in my entire life. Looking out at these faces, looking out at this Caribbean, on a floating island of American power, on the front lines of defending the American homeland. Make no mistake about it. What you're doing right now, it's not training. This is the real world exercise on behalf of the vital national interests of the United States of America to end the poisoning of the American people. How we doing, Warriors?
I'm sure this war on drugs is going to go perfect. They'll just end the drug problem. No problem at all. Because last one went so well. The peace president. It's all about money too, right? Maxime Bernier, PPC leader, Canada, says a monetary reset is coming. He recently gave a speech talking about it. Here's what he has to say with regard to that, because the world is being reshaped.
Why should you care about monetary policy? Because a global monetary reset is imminent. For over 50 years, the world has run on a fiat monetary system where money is created out of thin air. This has created massive debts. US huge debt is unsustainable, and the Americans are preparing a stunning move that will impact everyone. A reevaluation of US gold reserves. The US values its gold at $42 an ounce. By revaluing it to market prices or even higher, they can magically create trillions of dollars on paper. This accounting trick could be used to pay off part of their national debt. But here's the punch. This maneuver will create inflation and will lower our standard of living, and Canada is dangerously unprepared. We hold zero gold reserves, only vulnerable US bonds. When this reset takes place, inflation would hit. The message is clear. Understand what's coming. The global monetary order is changing, and gold is center stage.
Maybe some validity to that. And let me see here. I know that there was comments being made by a Russian official with regard to this stuff too. Just in the last day or so, saying that the United States has engaged in, let me see if I can find it again. They've come up with a scheme. Basically, what was it? Sorry, I don't mean to. I think it's an important clip if I can find it. Yeah, it's right here. Just this is Putin's advisor, Kobyakov, says Washington will shove debt into stablecoins, devalue it, and reset the system. He's saying that it's a scheme to shove $35 trillion worth of debt, which the United States owes, into crypto, devalue it, and then reset the whole economic system. And I think maybe that's what Maxime Bernier is kind of getting at as well. Let me show you his comments here. So hold on to your wallets, folks, because if these guys are right, then we're in for a heap of inflation. And that means everything you've worked for, slaved for, saved, will soon be worth squat.
Америка прямо сейчас
says the U.S. is now trying to rewrite the rules of the gold and cryptocurrency markets.
Пытается поменять правила на рынке золота и криптовалют. Вспомните, какой...
Remember the size of their debt, $35 trillion. Gee, I wonder why Trump and his rich friends have their sights set on Alberta and maybe all of Canada. Oil? Resources?
У них долг? 35...
To pay off the national debt, $35 trillion? Oh, yeah, you're going to get a big tax break, right? Mm-hmm.
Триллионов долларов. В общем-то, это...
These two sectors, crypto and gold, are essentially alternatives to the traditional global currency system.
Два альтернативных валютному сегменту мировых рынка. Действия
Washington's actions in this area clearly highlight one of its main goals.
Вашингтона в этом направлении отчетливо демонстрирует одну из главных американских задач. Они
to urgently address the declining trust in the dollar.
Очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. США, как это было...
As in the 1930s and the 1970s, the U.S. plans to solve its financial problems at the world's expense.
30-е и 70-е годы будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет всего мира, загоняя всех куда?
This time by pushing everyone into the crypto cloud.
Криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть...
Over time, once part of the U.S. national debt is placed into stablecoins, Washington will devalue
долга
that debt.
США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот долг. Еще раз простыми...
Put simply, they have a $35 trillion currency debt. They'll move it into the crypto cloud, devalue it, and start from scratch.
Словами, у них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг, они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля. Это для тех...
That's the reality for those who are so enthusiastic about crypto.
Кто очень любит заниматься криптой.
So that was 2 days ago at the Eastern Economic Forum. Are you scared? Oh, man. I've been saying for a while, too, that all this tariff stuff, this is really about destabilizing things more than about really building things. And today, and it ties into what what we just heard about with regard to moving debt into crypto. Mark Carney, Canadian Prime Minister, out in the Maritimes today, addressing the issue of tariffs, coming up with more money for tariff support out at a shipyard, highlighting what his government is doing. Here he is.
Mondiaux diversifiés. Just last Friday in Mississauga, I announced a series of new and comprehensive measures to protect, build, and transform our strategic industries so they can prosper in this new global economy. These measures they're wide-ranging and they're flexible, they're focused on the future.
So he's in the
first thing we did
here.
First thing we focused on
shipyard
was measures so that Canadian workers can develop the skills for those new high-paying careers that those nation-building projects that Premier and I referenced will create. And we shouldn't underestimate, I'll stop here, shouldn't underestimate just how many jobs will be created, for example, in Churchill, as it's built out. on top of the over $225 billion of revenues that come to this province
He
as it
announced
operates.
80 million in tariff relief.
So we start with workers, we start with
for the
retraining,
Maritimes
we start
today.
with building. And then we go to those industries and we give them the opportunity to pivot to new products and markets with a $5 billion new strategic response fund.
It's part of the $1 billion tariff
introduced
fund
a comprehensive Buy Canadian policy.
for
So we're
Canadian businesses
modernizing all of
support.
Canada's public procurement to prioritize public and Canadian suppliers. Because it's time that we become our own best customer, buying Canadian to build Canadian. So your government will buy in this province and across this country. Fourth, you know, there's some businesses that are very acutely impacted by these U.S. tariffs, and they need immediate liquidity relief. They need immediate funds in order to adjust. And that's the case for the steel and aluminum industries. These are world-class industries. But they're enduring punishing U.S. tariffs. And these impacts are being felt far and wide, including out here on the East Coast. So our liquidity facilities give businesses the support and the time that they need to position themselves for the future. And lastly, this will be my principal focus today, we're strengthening supports for our medium and small businesses. In March, we announced the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, $450 million across the country to support SMEs directly or indirectly impacted by those U.S. tariffs. And the idea is so these companies can step up and diversify their products, diversify their markets, adopt new technologies, become more competitive. And last week, I announced that we'd increase the funding for this from $450 million to $1 billion. Not just that, we'd extend the repayment periods for up to 9 years and provide new non-repayable contributions of up to $1 million across all sectors, so from seafood through to IT. And today I'm proud to announce that $80 million of that funding will be dedicated to businesses right here in Atlantic Canada. Thank you. And this money will flow through the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. We'll fund small and medium-sized businesses across the region, help them not just to invest, not just to endure, but to thrive. It'll be important for that ocean economy. More than half of that $30 billion ocean economy is right here in Atlantic Canada. In all, this region's a giant in fishing, manufacturing, forestry, IT, energy, shipbuilding. And its overseas trade corridors sitting here in St. John's Harbor connect Canada with the rest of the world. Si nous voulons bâtir l'économie la plus dynamique du G7, et nous le ferons, nous devons tout mettre en œuvre pour permettre à la région et à nos industries les plus prometteuses de prospérer. Now, the $80 million under that Regional Tariff Response Initiative that goes to Atlantic Canada will help, as I said, SMEs to expand into new markets. For example, developing innovative packaging and product formats. Think in food processing, in fishery, vacuum-sealed lobster tails or flash-frozen crab clusters, tailored for high-demand European markets. But it'll also help strengthen supply chains as businesses upgrade their cold storage and live holding systems. So products can stay longer, fresher for longer, and make it easier to reach more export markets overseas. And our manufacturing and resource industries will also benefit. Par exemple, les producteurs d'acier peuvent moderniser les usines de fabrication pour la construction et la construction navale. Et les scieries de bois d'œuvre peuvent intensifier leurs activités afin de répondre à la demande nationale et internationale croissante en matière de construction durable. Enfin, les entreprises peuvent moderniser leurs usines de transformation en optimisant le classement, le tri et les chaînes d'emballage afin d'améliorer leur efficacité et leur constance. So equipping Atlantic Canadian businesses with the tools they need to respond to new challenges. to innovate, to modernize, to expand operations and customer bases, to take full advantage of new opportunities. These are the ambitions that align with the missions and what's guiding your government to build lasting economic strength. It's what Premier Hogan's government is focused on. Now, we recognize that we're only going to realize these opportunities if we act. And you know, that can be tough in times like this. Changes in the global economy. This isn't just a phase, it's not just a transition, it's a rupture. It's a fundamental change that's happening in a very short period of time. And that rupture brings immense uncertainty. And when you have that big uncertainty, that can paralyze decision-making, hold back investment, stifle growth. But this is not the time to delay and hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy. It's time, as I said earlier, to control what we can control. The products we buy in Canada. Taking the time so our businesses can have what they need to adjust to new realities. Getting capital to our businesses so they can retool and find new markets. And getting our workers, helping them have the skills they need for the future. Because when our businesses take calculated risks rather than face unknowable uncertainties, our builders, our innovators, our entrepreneurs thrive, and all of Atlantic Canada and the whole of the country rises with them, with higher wages and a brighter future. The people of this province, from their history, know better than anyone how precarious an industry can be. You know that the forces can change overnight and change everything. We are clear-eyed. Canada's new government is clear-eyed about the scale and the speed of the forces currently at play outside our shores. So we're empowering Canadians to shape our own destiny, to build the future we want, an economic future that's not reliant on one trading partner, but built on strong Canadian industries, powered by strong Canadian demand, and bolstered by new international trading partners. So we're making the major investments to ensure our industries, our businesses can bridge to that future, seize opportunities, so we can create that rising tide that lifts all boats. A global leader in food, in fishing, in shipping, in defense, in IT, and in energy. Because Canada has what the world needs, and we have the values to which the world aspires. Because together, stronger, we are building Canada strong. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now begin the question period.
We'll stay with it.
Question, go ahead.
Heather Gillis with CBC News.
Hi.
Prime Minister, how do you plan to pay for these support measures? Will it be adding to the deficit or through cutting programs?
So the measures we're taking, the Strategic Response Fund, liquidity so that businesses can pivot to grow. What I'm talking about principally today, the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, $80 million for Atlantic Canadian small, medium-sized enterprises so they can invest in the future. Those are investments. Those are proud investments. They're ambition investments for the future. And what the government is going to do, what we're in the process for the next budget, is focusing on reducing waste, reducing unnecessary federal spending, reducing the duplication in federal spending, becoming more efficient in federal spending so that we have the room, we have the force to support our businesses so they can invest for the future. That's what we're doing. And a key message from today is we're doing that, and we'll be working with the province of Newfoundland and Labrador on major projects in energy, clean and conventional energy, for example. We're also working with the smallest businesses in Newfoundland and Labrador so that they can all invest for a brighter future. Thank you.
Bonjour, Kira Morellon avec Radio-Canada. Ma question est pour le Premier ministre. Vous avez parlé beaucoup d'unité nationale depuis votre arrivée au pouvoir. Oui. Pourtant, au Québec, le Parti québécois a quand même le vent dans les voiles et son chef est pressé de tenir un 3e référendum sur l'indépendance de la province s'il est élu Premier ministre l'an prochain. Est-ce que vous êtes inquiet pour l'unité nationale?
J'ai beaucoup de confiance pour l'avenir du Canada, l'avenir du Québec, l'avenir du Canada, parce que les Québécois et Québécoises, ils veulent investir dans l'économie québécoise. Il veut l'investir dans un avenir plus prospère, plus équitable, plus soutenable pour le Québec et pour le Canada. Et nous travaillons dans une étroite collaboration, oui, avec le gouvernement du Québec, le gouvernement actuel du Québec, mais les entreprises et les ouvriers, les travailleurs québécois et québécoises, afin d'atteindre cet avenir prospère. D'accord.
Next question.
Cameron Kilfoy with The Telegram. I'm curious, what kind of relief can people who lost their homes to wildfires here expect from the federal government and when? And I'm also curious if you believe it's time to establish a national fire agency, given the amount of destruction seen this season.
Well, I think thanks for the question. And let me first say to those families who've lost their homes, lost their property, and been through the trauma of the fires, that recognize the immense anguish that brings. I'm grateful, as I said earlier, to the Premier's leadership, to the first responders, to the forces, to the Coast Guard, the action, the speedy action and timely action that helped preserve lives during this difficult time. We're working through the compensation. It'll be at the appropriate time. My key point, though, to your question, is we have an emergency response agency which helps coordinate those responses. And I think what we're taking from that is we need to continue to invest in all aspects of fire prevention, including with Indigenous peoples, with traditional methods, all aspects of fire prevention, fire detection. We're making huge investments in our satellite detection, which is helping us to move quickly, and our capacity to move quickly in any part of this country in order to limit the damage from the wildfires. That will, and that's everything from those first responders, our firefighters, to our water bomber capacity, and you'll be hearing more about all those aspects in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, Bailey Howard, NTV. We've heard a lot of talk about Churchill Falls and Gull Island being on the national projects list. What sort of responsibility does that mean Canada has in these projects? And if they were to go south, what sort of repercussions would there be then for the federal government as well?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that both of those projects and a longer list of opportunities, enormous opportunities, obviously, in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I think enormous enthusiasm and energy in order to help realize those. So I think of them not going south, I think of them going north, in this case, to use the analogy, going forward and building. And part of where the federal government comes in, and it depends on the project. There's different ways that we have a role. And by the way, sometimes the answer to our role is just get out of the way. The project's going to move forward, province has it in hand, and the federal government steps back and focuses on other things. But in a variety of cases, it will be working on making sure the appropriate environmental assessments are done, other regulatory concerns, and as much as possible done in cooperation with the province. And we're working with the province on a cooperation agreement that will help make that even more efficient. So that's one aspect. There's other aspects where a project will have, particularly something on clean energy, for example, will have tremendous ancillary benefits for the economy. In other words, it sets us up, sets Newfoundland and Labrador, but Canada as well, up for the future in terms of decades. And in those cases, sometimes through the tax system, other aspects, we can provide incentives to move those projects forward as well. Third area is in training. Now, first and foremost, a responsibility of the provinces, but working with the provinces to make sure people are getting the skills so that these major investments are benefiting people like the workers surrounding us, their families, their friends, their neighbors, because the scale of ambition in this province and in this country isn't just, and not that your question implied this, one project, but a series of projects, a series of major investments. So we're really sending the message that this is 30 years of work. These are good, high-paying careers, and the federal government can help make sure that workers have the opportunity to get the skills. So like Jenny, sorry, Chief Jenny, I don't want to keep singling you out, but you get the welder's ticket, you get the boilermaker's ticket, you get the IT skills in other examples so that you can fully take advantage of those.
Next question.
Hi, Ashley Fitzpatrick with Atlantic Business Magazine.
Okay.
I'm wondering about the amount of money that you're talking about here, $80 million split across 4 provinces and all small and medium-sized enterprises. Does this realistically actually serve all of the needs that are going to be out there? If you look at even the Chinese tariffs on shellfish, for instance, you know, a sustained tariff there is going to be devastating. Can this really help manage what's going to be tremendous impact for folks who aren't necessarily going to become boilermakers or serve the major projects?
Yeah, no, so I think the first thing to say is part of the way we allocate, look, $1 billion is a lot of money. The overall format, $1 billion is a lot of money. And what we're allocating here is bigger than the relative share of population, the relative share of GDP of the overall Canadian economy, allocated that way. The second is it's channeled, as I said, through ACOA, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. And it's one of multiple projects or policies, initiatives that's channeled through ACOA. And then on top of that, we have the Business Development Bank programs as well. On top of that, we have various liquidity facilities that are available as well. So there's lots of ways to help businesses get time to develop the plan and make the pivot. I'll make another point, though. I just want to reinforce something the Premier was saying, because I think it's so important. There is a connection between these big projects and a small business. These big projects, even in the early days of the development of the engineering for these projects, the early work in the steel and fabrication industry and other, they create tremendous amount of activity as well. And since we're focused, and this is a key element of our strategy that we announced last Friday, since the federal government's very focused of, if we're putting Canadian taxpayer dollars at work into moving these big projects forward, and in other areas, we expect buy Canadian. We expect to buy Canadian steel. We expect to use Canadian IT professionals, Canadian HR, and on and on and on. And so that starts to really add up, and we're going to have to look at the whole, and we're going to add to this as necessary going forward. En français, tout cela va.
Okay. So, $80 million out of a $1 billion tariff fund for tariff relief for Canadian businesses allocated to the Maritimes, shipyard, shipping, all these businesses affected by U.S. tariffs. So that's where we're at with that. And you have to remember as well that Carney still needs to get a budget passed. That will happen next month in October. He'll finally table a budget. If it doesn't pass and he has a minority government, it would become an issue of confidence in the House, could trigger another election. Will it pass? I suspect it will, because I think the Conservatives, ultimately, enough of them will support it and it will pass, because I don't think any of the parties at this point really have an appetite for another election. Although the Conservatives are pretty hungry. They're salivating. I think they probably will realize that the Canadian public doesn't really have an appetite for another election so soon after the election of Mark Carney. There was another point I was going to make that was off the top of my head, but I don't really remember exactly where we're at. I guess maybe I'm getting old. Yes, I am. But back to Venezuela, and more specifically now Puerto Rico, where another clip from Hegseth addressing the troops that they are amassing there has popped up online. I have it for you here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, don't take my word for it. Pete Hegseth himself, the Secretary of War, representing the peace president, says this is not a drill. This is not a drill.
Now, the reason I like the name War Department so much is not because I love war.
Yeah.
I don't, and neither do you. It's because I seek and love peace. And those who love and long for peace must prepare for war. We are in the strength department of peace through strength. Other folks will make sure that the diplomatic relations land right where they should, and our commander-in-chief is focused on that. He is a peace president, but he's asked me, he's asked General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who's with us here today as well, to ensure that we have the most ready, most capable military the world has ever seen. Now, the reason...
Well, okay. Okay. I gotta wonder. And I do. And I have to wonder if this is not some sort of a diversion, maybe. I hate saying this because it's so overused, but is this just a distraction to get people looking the other way while the Dems release this today? This is the naughty letter that the birthday greeting that Trump shared with or sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Says, we got Trump's birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein that the president said doesn't exist. He talks about a wonderful secret the two of them shared. What is he hiding? Release the files. So I'll try to make it larger for you so you can see it. Mainstream media, online, independent media, just it's being shared all over the place. So you can see it. It is as described. And it's a little, actually, in this image, it's a little bit difficult to read some of it. It seems, or at least the copy that I found of it. But you can see that it says there, must be more to life than having everything. Donald, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do. Come to think of it, Donald. Experience, what is that? Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that, Jeffrey? As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. Donald J. Trump. So there's the signature, which they say represents naughty bits, or at least part of the naughty bits. And some people are saying, how fake. Here, I'll just do a little scroll through X. Right there. That's Ryan Daly, yeah, whoever that is, on X posting. That's clearly not Donald Trump's signature. Would you like to try any of this again? And then there's another example of his signature there that doesn't seem to match. So a lot of people wondering if it's true, not true. Release the files, release the files, release the files. It's the story that won't go away. It's haunting him. He's got a problem. And he says here, my blind cousin could forge a better signature. Fake. Real. Down there. I don't know. They do look different, but are there other examples of his signature that might match what we saw on the letter? Maybe it needs more analysis. But these days, it doesn't matter what is released. Somebody always doubts, right? All you have to do is just cast a little doubt on something, cast a little doubt on something. I'm amazed, actually, that anybody is ever convicted of a crime in the United States anymore because, or maybe even anywhere, because it's so easy to just throw a little doubt on it. And if you need to prove something beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt in a court of law in order to convict someone, I don't know how you do that anymore in the age of AI and who knows what the heck this is. I don't know. What is this? I want this for Cosmo, my super dog. This is, I guess, a Halloween costume for a dog. And I came across this. I think this is hilarious. Oh, creepy or what? That's hilarious. That's great. That's fantastic. Creepy. I have to wonder if Donald Trump might end up being caught in a web of lies. It certainly seems these politicians spin the truth, don't they? With that, I will leave you until tomorrow, everybody. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Special hello to all the Mavericks over on the Twitch channel. Thanks for going over there. And we'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side. Oh, oops, those files, they don't exist.
They both look clean, but the guest list redacted, if you know what I mean. No files exist, just a little twist, nothing to see here. Move along, folks, the truth's in the vault with the dirty jokes. No names released, justice deceased to protect the victims. And Donald Trump, shh, don't say the name, you'll get dumped. They dance with the girls too young to vote, a private jet and a suicide note. One's in a grave, the other still tweets. The truth took a dive 6,000 feet. The cameras broke, that's not a joke. The guards were napping, the logs were gone, and everyone smiled like nothing's wrong. Nobody talks, just shadow walks. National security took the stage while justice quietly disengaged. We can't release the names to protect the victims. And also Donald Trump. Coincidence? Just dumb luck. Right? Another sealed file. That crocodile smile. We did our best, says the DOJ, while the truth just fades away. Another new spin. No one will win except the rich guys with gold ID cards and closets full of secrets behind steel bars. Just a little glitch, a billionaire's privilege. That's the sound of the case closed.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.